Welcome. This is our official welcome. I know you've been hearing me talk for like 30 minutes, but I'm really excited. I'm really in a good mood about this. I'm very optimistic about post-COVID, so I'm hoping you all feel that way too. I feel like we're in the home stretch. But today's program is so essential for your success with applying for any type of funding that is available now and or will be coming down the pike. I am Susan McCartney. I am with the SUNY Buffalo State, which is the best SUNY college in the entire system, SUNY Buffalo State on Elmwood Avenue. I'm with the Small Business Development Center, and two of the best team members, wonderful persons on our team, are with us today, Andrea Lysak, Marilyn Roach. I'll be introducing Marilyn after we hear some beautiful remarks from the Assemblyman who is sponsoring this workshop today, Assemblyman Jonathan Rivera. And if you'd give me just a second, I'm really excited to introduce him. Jonathan Rivera, who I've known for a long time, phenomenal individual. He is the Assemblyman for New York State 149. That's the one thing I have to look at, keeping track of these numbers. Like, would you know? How do you keep track of the numbers? But anyway, he is the Assemblyman representing New York State 149, which is on the western part of New York State, where most of us are today. He is my Assemblyman. A few interesting things about Jonathan that I'd like to share with you about the Assemblyman is that he is a lifelong resident of the west side of Buffalo. Yay, which I'm enthusiastic about. He is the son of another famous Buffalonian, who some of you may know, David Rivera, the council member, who is and was a former police officer. His mother was a teacher. Yay on that. Further, this is very important to this workshop today. Assemblyman Rivera worked in banking. He's a banker, was a banker. Once a banker, always have that in you. He, for many years, was with one of our very big league banks, HSBC. He was a bank manager, a customer relations person. He ran the bank on the west side of Buffalo on Grant Street. I mean, he has experience in our field specifically, which is unusual for elected officials. So we feel a great alignment with Assemblyman Jonathan Rivera. Also, he is a graduate of, I have to mention this, of Hutch Tech, which I have many family members who attended Hutch Tech. And he is we're proud of him, graduate of SUNY Buffalo State. Hooray, he has a degree in business administration, again relevant to us. Sounds like he's the perfect Assemblyman for all of us. He's our sponsor today, and I'd like you all unmute for a minute. Let's applaud Jonathan Rivera, our dear Assemblyman. Thank you for joining us today, Assemblyman.
Thank you. I know I don't get those kind of introductions ever, so thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. Super enthusiastic. I want to thank everybody for joining us on this. I'll give you a bit about my background real quick. Prior to being in the Assembly, and I've been a member of the New York State Assembly for all of about 2 months now, so just figuring out where the bathrooms are, just figuring out where everything is now. It's been an exciting 2 months where we've taken on a lot, and certainly going to take on a lot more in the upcoming weeks. We're going to be, challenging ourselves to really look at the state's finances, the generosity of the federal government and what that looks like for New York State and for municipalities across the state, but then also, decisions ahead around, what we're doing from everything from housing and rental assistance to, adult use marijuana to, changing, income tax brackets. I mean, everything is sort of on the table. So it's an exciting time to be in government. Prior to this, I worked in county government. I was, for those that might know, County Executive Mark Polencars. I worked in the executive office as a liaison to the county legislature, which certainly had its fun days. I also was an administrator in the Department of Public Works, so I handled some personnel things and some budget things for the department, but also took on some projects when it came to around green infrastructure, so that was exciting. Before that, as Susan mentioned, I was a banker, so If you ever come down to my office, it's at 65 Grand Street, right in the corner, or near the corner of Grant and West Ferry. Right next to it is a KeyBank branch. That was actually my branch. So small world, my office is right next door to an office that I was at for about 4 or 5 years, which is great because it's the neighborhood that I grew up in. It's the neighborhood my parents live in. So I love being here in the middle of the West Side. But in that office, I was, took on different roles, but eventually at around 23, I became a branch manager of that HSBC. When it was an HSBC, then it became a key bank. And, what that opened my eyes to was the nature of small businesses, how unique they are, how different they are, how not all squares fit in round holes and so forth, and how we have to sort of do everything we can to accommodate small businesses, because small businesses is what employs the majority of people. Small businesses are the things that move our economy. Yes, I had, big companies that interacted with us there. For example, Rich Products. My office was their first bank going back probably to the 1920s. So there's big institutions there, but my clients included the optometrist around the corner, the restaurant across the street, the dry cleaner down the street. So that's where I made most of my, where I spent the majority of my efforts. So I assisted small businesses with some as basic as opening bank accounts, but then also connecting them with Sue and being able to obtain any assistance that they could in small businesses. That's why I wanted to do this here today, and sort of continue that work. And I'm sure there'll be more of these sort of things down the road. But I'm eager to find out, what are some of the things that you're seeing in this COVID era, because the roads ahead of you are challenging. To take on this endeavor of opening a business has a world of challenges, a world of sort of ambiguity and kind of not knowing your way. But to do it in the middle of COVID is something that I really applaud everybody here in pursuing. And whether you're a nonprofit organization working in the arts, or whether you're a real estate holding company or a restaurant or anything in between, we're going to see the end of this sooner than we believe it. I believe that we're moving in a much better direction with vaccines, and I'm confident that we're doing as much as we can. So if I'd say any other thing, stay safe, and listen to Sue, because she's way smarter than I am.
Oh,
And,
no.
and her team has always done great. And whenever I've sent people her way, everybody's always come back, just more comfortable, more confident, feeling more informed, and sort of being exposed to sort of all the steps necessary to move their businesses forward. So thank you to everyone on Sue's team, and thank you for everybody for joining us. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblyman.
Sue froze. Do you want to share your screen, Marilyn?
Oh, sure. But
Sue froze.
All right. You want to give her a second? Sue, if you come back, if you can hear us, I will pause. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Now I'm going to miss out on those wonderful introductions that Susan does. But I am happy to be here today to speak with all of you about funding readiness. And I know that we have a mix here of business owners, for-profit, non-for-profit, but like Sue said, paperwork is paperwork. And if you have those, if you are ready to go, that is most of the game. Unfortunately, we had a number of our clientele call us when COVID hit, and they were applying for EIDL loans, and they didn't know where their paperwork was. They weren't ready. And some people actually lost out on the advance, which some of you may be not aware of. I'll just explain. The advance was when you were able to get $1,000 per employee. No questions asked, didn't have to be spent, it didn't have to be paid back. But that money ran out. And so that window of time when people weren't prepared really hurt them financially. So that's why we were asked to put this together. And I hope I keep you all engaged. I'm going to ask Andrea to monitor the chat box. And every couple of slides I'll stop, so I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. No question is not important, so please ask it if it's in your head. And then I also want to say that you will get this slide, or the checklist at the end. Is Sue back yet by any chance?
Not yet. Her internet went dead.
Okay.
So I'm doing little technical
So just
background here.
let me know when you want me to break. Okay, so we'll keep going to get everything going. So I know we're talking about paperwork and getting your ducks in a row for the potential grant or loan application that's coming down the line. I wanted to start by talking about what the lender or the agency that is putting out money is looking for in an individual. It is very, very important that we talk about the 5 C's, okay? The first one, character, capacity, capital, collateral, and conditions. So character, this is your credit score. This shows who you are and your ability to pay back that loan. So, you should know your credit score. If it's under 650, you need to work on it, because it's imperative that you have a good credit score to prove your ability to pay. Now, people have low credit scores for a multitude of reasons. It could be that you just don't have credit. You're right out of school, you have school debt. There's a ton of reasons why it could happen. It could be because you started your business and COVID hit, you can't pay your bills, your landlord, whoever. So, there's reasons behind it all, but you should be working on it all the time. You should know if there's a lien or a mark on your credit. You're looking at over 650, 680 for most banks, okay? And I'm sure Jonathan will talk about what their requirements are. Capacity, can you handle the loan payments, okay? And this is what we do when we work together with our clients doing a cash flow statement. So money in, money out, is that money that's going to come in going to be able to cover the loan payment? So we do an amortization table based on the terms of the loan, because most of the time it's not a grant, so you'd have to pay it back. So we do that. So we want to know about capacity. Capital. Most banks, most lenders are looking for the owner to have some equity, some skin in the game. Usually it's about 10% of the total project cost. Sometimes it's less. Of course, if there's a grant, some of the grants actually, they want to see that you've already invested in your business. I could think about one with Erie County where part of the loan becomes a grant. They want you to have $5,000 invested, whether it be in dollars or in equipment, which leads me to the next part, collateral. You don't have to have a house, but do you have the equipment that could be used as collateral in the event that you can't pay the loan? Now, this is a tricky one because it's chicken and egg, okay? But it's one of the considerations when you're getting a loan. And then finally, what's the purpose of the loan? Does it make sense? That's where your business plan comes in. You demonstrate your tools, your ability to do this business. I mean, if I were to apply for a business loan to be a plumber, they'd laugh at me because I don't even know how to hold a tool. So that's part of the conditions that they're talking about. Who's involved? Where's the ability to make the business work? So those are the 5 C's. I wanted to put it out there because even if you have your paperwork in order, if you don't meet this checklist, you may have a hard time getting funding. So I put this slide together in order of how we usually advise our businesses for startup, okay? So, the first thing that we have to do is determine what type of business entity we're going to be, okay? Well, first we have to have our idea, but then we have to decide what's the right entity for this business. One of the things I want to recommend, and you'll get these slides, is that each one of these slides, there's not many. I mean, this is not a long presentation. I'll keep it simple, simple, simple so that it's always doable. Each one of these slides could be a file in a main file on your desktop. So, you know, I grew up in an age of paper, all right? And I love paper. I keep every piece of paper that I've ever received. But you want to scan those papers and you want a digital file because that's how you're going to be applying for any type of funding, okay? So scan your documents, put them in a digital file. That file should be titled, you know, loan documents. And then within that loan document, your first file should be business entity documentations, okay? So there's several different types of business entity. The first one is just being a sole proprietor. And unless you use just your personal name, you have to file that business name with the county clerk. And that's what's called a DBA. So you can get a certificate. That certificate says, you know, Marilyn Roach's fabulous business, okay? So that would be my DBA. $35 down to county clerk's office. They make sure that name is available and you're in business, okay? So you would want to keep that scanned. If you decide that your business could expose you to any type of liability, you may want to consider having an LLC or a corporation formed. So let's talk about an LLC. An LLC is similar to being a DBA. You're the business owner. Taxes, finances, passes right through to you. So you want to have that filed with Department of State, and you get a certificate of organization. That proves that you have an LLC. Now there's more to it. You have to publish in the newspaper and, you know, send that to the Department of State also. So there's more to it, but for this purpose, you just need that certificate of organization, all right? If you form an S Corp, little different, we'll talk about that later, that is a separate entity. You become an employee of the company. That's going to be important that we'll talk about in a couple more slides. Then you're going to have your articles of incorporation. Again, it's done with the Department of State. If you're fortunate that you could be working with Western New York law, they'll do that all for you. There's really no magic to this. This is just being organized, making sure that your name is going to be available, that nobody else has a similar name, so there's no confusion. So you would file that corporation, you get your articles of incorporation. So DBA, you get a certificate. LLC, you get the certificate of organization. Corporation, you get articles of incorporation, okay? So you know what your entity is. Make sure you have that document, okay? That proves who you are, when you are, and it has a date on it. So that date is going to be important. For those of you who had to apply for any COVID relief, you know you had to be in business before February 15. If you didn't have any documentation proving that, it didn't work, okay? So when you get a DBA, an LLC, or any type of corporation formed, you should also apply for an employer identification number. It's also called an EIN. That EIN is your business identity, like a Social Security would be your personal identity. So it's important to have that for more reasons than one. You're filling out lots of paperwork. You don't want to put your Social Security on it, okay? That EIN number is critical. Otherwise, you have to use your Social Security. When you apply for your EIN, it is free, okay? I told you that the DBA is $35. To do an LLC or corporation, it's a couple $100. And then if it's an LLC, it's a couple $100 more because of the publications. So you can see how the pricing works. But an EIN is free, and you definitely need to have it. If you don't have it, okay, use your Social Security number. And when I tell you have it, scan it. I can't find my Social Security number. I can't find my card. So if I was in business, I'd be in trouble right now. So you definitely want to scan everything and put it in one file. I'm going to stop right here and see if Sue's back. Andrea?
She is back, or she
I'm
was
here,
there.
but yeah, I'm sorry, I lost internet. Continue, Marilyn. We're not going
Okay.
to waste any time. Go ahead.
Great.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions, Andrea, at this point?
Not yet.
So I'm either doing a great job or I put you out of sleep. So let's keep going. All right. The next part, again, your second file that goes in that major folder is your business banking, okay? We recommend that every business have a separate bank account for their business. I mean, don't commingle with your personal, okay? You're gonna open up a business bank account in the name of the business using the EIN. So again, you need to have your DBA or your LLC paperwork or your corporation paper numbers. You need all of that and your EIN to open up the bank account. So this isn't even looking for a loan. This is just to open up a bank account. You need these files. So many times we've seen that SBA 43 North, who was administrating back to business, they wanted your bank information and a voided check. So name and branch, the routing number, the account number, and a voided check. Now, surprisingly enough, people got very confused about what the routing number and account number was. And that's why I put this slide together, so that you know that the first part is your routing number and the second part is your account number. It's critical. SBA could not make deposits into people's accounts because they didn't have the right information. So then they started asking for a voided check. So be ready. Just take your first check, void it, scan it, put it in your folder, okay? Bank statements are very important as well, and a lot of bank statements are coming now digitally. But if you get them in print, you do want to scan them. So what do you need a bank statement for? One, it's going to prove that you've been in operation. Two, it's going to confirm that you have sales and expenses. And three, we're going to manage our accounting through those bank statements. All right. So we want to have that in that folder every month, put them in. And then I'm going to be quite honest with you, again, because I'm a nerd, I would then do it by year after that, because you need to keep your business records 5 to 7 years. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm like blanking on that. I think it's 7. Okay. And then finally, if you have any other loans, you need to have documentation for that, because in most instances, they're going to want to see a business bank account, a business balance sheet, and they're going to want to see a personal financial statement. So you need to have your balance that you owe on any loans, okay? When we're doing PPP, we have to have a PPP loan number. We have an EIDL loan number. We might have, an operating loan number. So we want to have all of those. And we also always want to know what our balances do. Again, that gives us that ability to pay that I was talking about in the capacity part of the 5 C's. Because if you have so many loans outstanding, one more could put you in a point where you can't pay back. So the banks need to know that. Any lender needs to know that. Okay?
We have a question. Do you want it now or do you want to wait?
No, let's go.
Syra asked, if you were incorporated as a DBA first, but then became an LLC, do you need to hang on to both of those files, or does the LLC take precedent at that point?
Great question. So I am not a lawyer, but what I would say is that if you have to prove, so I would keep all my files. I would keep everything, all right? Because it is a continuation of your business. So you need to show when you started and how long you were in business as a DBA, okay? Especially in this situation, if you were a DBA prior to February 15 and then you changed to an LLC, let's say in June of 2020, that would you'd have to show both as far as being in operation. You'd have to show your sales and your cost of goods sold, and then you would have to show what happened after you changed to the LLC, okay? You would have 2 separate EIN numbers. It gets a little hairy, so you do want to keep those files separate, okay? I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, good, thank you. Okay, so taxes. This was the killer, absolute killer when we were doing EIDL in early 2020. In March of 2020, when everything closed and businesses had no ability to make a sale because so many were brick and mortar, and didn't have an online capability, and even if they had online capabilities to sell, maybe that wasn't their primary way. We would have to prove their sales and cost of goods sold based on tax returns. Well, not many of us had our tax returns ready to go by mid-March, okay? So if you don't have your tax returns ready, you certainly better have your financials ready, okay? So tax returns kind of follow the line of your business entity. And as I said before, the DBA is very, very much like the LLC. Both get done on a Schedule C, which is a profit and loss schedule showing your business revenue, your business expenses, and then that bottom line profit or loss. That bottom line profit or loss gets moved over to your 1040. Those of you who have been in business for a while, I apologize for saying this, but if you're brand new, I just want you to know, and I think some of you may be new enough, that's how it works, okay? An S Corp, you file a separate tax return. It's a separate entity from you, okay? Those of you who have sales tax, you're in retail, you're in services like electrical, plumbing, you know, you're a hairdresser and you sell supplies, you need quarterly sales tax. I'm going to give you a slide just on that. We won't go too much in depth, but I want you to have it in your files because there's very important dates. But you need to always be in compliance with New York State or the IRS to get SBA money, to get federal funding, state funding. You can't be in default. So it's very important to prove that and to always stay on top of it. It's a cost of doing business. We just have to do it. They also want to see your personal tax returns. And obviously that makes a lot of sense with the DBA and the LLC, but you have to prove that personally you've been a good steward and you've been paying your taxes. And then there's been recently with the city of Buffalo and with some other programs where you have to prove your family income. Now this one here is a little bit unusual to us as business advisors because we've never come across this before. But if you are applying for something that has to do with the city or some of these other county programs, you may have to prove your family income, and you might have to meet a test, an income test, which means that if you have individuals over 18 living in your home, or you have a partner or a spouse, their income may count. So the tax returns count, and then you'd have to get their W-2s if you have somebody who's disabled who lives in the house, who's on Social Security. All those records are required when you apply for some of these loans. And I know that that's happening with the city of Buffalo right now. Okay. And for most purposes, they want the last 3 years. Okay. So think about this. Even if it isn't that you were going for a loan or you're going for a grant, say you want to sell your business down the road. The only way you can sell your business is to have these records in order. Okay. So as long as you've been in business, if it's more than 3 years, we can stop at 3 years. If it's less than 3 years, the years that you've been in business, we want to have a tax return. Okay. Questions?
Nothing in the chat.
Okay. I'm going to talk about sales tax, then I'm going to go over to Jonathan. Okay. So sales tax. Sales tax is a bit of a management headache, but it doesn't cost you anything. Okay. So let's talk about it. Let's just talk about retail. I'm a retailer. I sell clothes. If my, if it's under $110, I'm charging 4% sales tax. If it's over, I'm charging 8.75. That alone is a bit of a management. That money is not yours, that sales tax. It is so easy to spend that money when that money is in your bank account, okay? I always recommend that if you're a vendor that collects a lot of sales tax, you either get a separate bank account and swipe it and put it in, or you have to constantly manage that amount of money so that you don't put it on payroll, you don't put it on inventory, and you don't put it on rent. And as a former retailer, I had a business where I collected a lot of sales tax, and I screwed up the first quarter. I didn't have that money in my bank account. So that's why I'm kind of like very sensitive about this. I have an accounting background. So if I, as the accountant, screwed up like this, I think everybody could, because it's so hard when you're in business and every penny counts and you've got an extra dollar in your bank account and that dollar goes to New York State, but you have to pay your employees, you have a tendency to use that dollar for your employees. So my thought is plan appropriately, put it in a separate bank account. That's what worked for me. So I didn't spend the money, and know that you have 4 times a year where you have to pay your taxes. And if you have not collected any sales tax, you still need to send an online statement saying no sales tax collected. If you don't report on a quarterly basis, you get fined. Okay, this is a whole separate conversation, but because we're talking about keeping your records, I think it's really important, and I wanted you to have the process in place. So I'm going to hand over to Jonathan. Is it okay if I keep my slide up here, Jonathan? Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
There he is.
Thanks, Marilyn. Thank you, Sue and SBDC, and Mr. and Assembly Member Rivero. This presentation is right on point. I work with Pursuit. We are a community finance, community financial development institutional, CDFI, and we provide loans from $10,000 up to $250,000 through our local office here at the Beverly Gray Center on the East Side. Through Pursuit, though, folks have access up to $15 million through our affiliates. We have SBA affiliates who do much larger deals. We have a business development corporation that also finds other funding. The key to all of that funding and accessing it, we like to market that through one company. You have access up to 15 different loan products. The key here and the key takeaway from this presentation is to access any of those 15 loan products. This is the information you need. So when Marilyn says, make a digital file that you have ready for these applications, it works for grants and it works for loans. And even if you're on the equity side, it technically works for that too. This is what finance people want to see. And I'm going to encourage SBC on the next one to show that print screen of a banker's desktop, because honestly, that's what makes us happy. When we go to our desktop and we open up your email and we can see all these documents digitally, it's like, woohoo, home run. Let's look at this one and see if we can get them some money, right? Of course, there's always risk analysis involved, and that's part of the 5 C's of credit that Marilyn mentioned. But this is what we're looking for, these documents digitally as quickly as you can get it to us. So my number, in case anybody needs New York Forward loans, which were created for folks that had additional needs, financing needs outside of PPP and EIDL. If you're in business and you're looking for a small business loan up to $100,000, you can give me a call, 716-259-0762. Or you could check out Connect to Capital on the internet. New York Loan Fund is a New York State sponsored loan program. It's the lowest rates that we can offer at 3% up to $100,000 based on your pre-COVID revenues. And then outside of that, Pursuit is a great company to work for microloan up to $50,000 or smart loan up to $100,000. So thank you so much, Marilyn. This presentation is awesome. And anybody who's getting it, this is like concentrated medicine for you, because you're covering all the bases. This is awesome. So thank you so much for doing this and giving me a couple minutes. 716-259-0762. Please give me a call, and thank you.
You're welcome. So in addition to what Jonathan does, Pursuit is also doing PPP loans. And we were able to send a number of people who didn't have PPP the first time, or didn't have a good bank relationship, or for whatever reason, Pursuit. I've worked with a number of people who've gone through Pursuit. So it's a great organization. Can we put their contact information in the chat, Andrea?
Yes,
maybe
or
Jonathan, you could do
Jonathan
it.
can, or I would do it.
Yeah, Jonathan, why don't you put your information in the chat and then everybody will have it.
I'm on it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so this is where I kind of nerd out a little bit, but it's so important, okay? And those of you who have more of the right brain than the left brain, it's fine, okay? Let's keep it simple, all right? Balance sheet, okay? I wanna go over the 3 different types of statements that you have to have ready for the bank, okay? Will you always have these things available? No, but I'm going to give you a cheat at the end. Your balance sheet shows your assets, your liability, any owner's equity, okay? So assets would be things like cash on hand, inventory, equipment, okay? Keep it simple. Liabilities would be the loans. Like I said, we need to know what those loans are. It could be accounts payable. Assets could be accounts receivable, okay? So the difference between the assets and the liabilities is really your owner's equity. That's the profit and loss. When there's a loss on your balance sheet, it comes out of equity, okay? Because a balance sheet always has to be in equity. So the difference between the two is the owner's equity. That again shows the health of the company, okay? You probably don't always have a balance sheet ready on hand, but you're gonna have to do that on a personal financial statement or build a balance sheet in many instances for lending. Income statement. That's probably the one that you're most comfortable with, which is your income from revenue, from sales, operations, however you want to call it, and your expenses. In the situation with EIDL, they were very interested. SBA did their calculation based on income and cost of goods sold. Cost of goods sold is that direct expense that you could relate right to the sale. So sometimes cost of goods sold is that direct labor, okay? Sometimes it's the article that you're reselling, all right? But that's a classification that's really very important because cost of goods sold from your revenue comes to your net or your gross income. Gross income less your expenses becomes your net income. So an income statement is always necessary. And those of you who are trying to keep your business alive, but you're not using a QuickBooks or any type of system, it's going to be very hard for you to maintain these income statements and these balance sheets, all right? Now, I do recommend, and we can give you a discount because we're the SBDC, to get QuickBooks or to get some kind of accounting program. You're not accountants. Even as an accountant, I didn't want to maintain those records constantly. If you put the information in a good, timely manner, you can have really great reports with QuickBooks, okay? But if you don't have them, what do? We use our bank statements because we're smart and we started a separate bank account, okay? So we've got a separate bank account and we used it for every deposit, whether it be cash, credit, or check. And we used it for every expense because that's the way we were supposed to do things. And now we have our statement, we take our monthly statements and we can build a cash flow statement. And a cash flow statement really does create both an income statement and a balance sheet. I'm not going to get into all that with you. If you really want that kind of help, SBDC can help you, okay? Or you get a good accountant or you get a good bookkeeper, we can give you referrals for that. But that's what really saved a number of business owners when EIDL hit. They might not have had their accounting in order. They didn't have their taxes ready. But if they kept their banking separate, we were able to reconstruct their revenue and expenses from their bank statements. So that's why it's so important to kind of follow those opening steps that I had talked about. So you're going to open up that business bank account in the business name and your EIN, keep it separate from yourself. Even if you're starting, and this works for, this is nonprofit and for-profit, but even if you're starting a consulting business and you're just calling it your name, open up a separate one with that EIN, okay? You're going to use your business debit and credit card for all expenses. You're going to keep everything separate. And then you're going to look at those transactions and track them regularly. Okay. That is going to help you, one, understand your business. It's going to let you know when you have that extra money to buy more inventory or not. Okay. Understanding your business from a financial standpoint is just as important as understanding your customer, understanding your products. Okay. So I encourage you to, if you can afford it, it's not that much money, to get a system, you know, something off the shelf. And if you can't afford that, at least implement some really good structure for yourself. Okay. And I think that one of the things with nonprofits is because there's so many people that have hands in it, assign one person this responsibility. Okay. That's the benefit of being a nonprofit with multiple parties, being the sole proprietor, where you're the chief cook and bottle washer and you have to do everything yourself, right? So I think that this is, to me, this is a really critical point. And as you save, as you prepare your financial statements, you're going to keep that in a separate bank account. I mean, a bank account, a separate file on your desktop. And even if you're doing it quarterly, I prefer you do it monthly, but even if you do it quarterly, that you're going to always have a current snapshot of where you are financially. Okay. Because like Jonathan said, if you don't have your finances in place, even if you have all your documentation, they can't consider you. Any questions, Andrea?
No, we're good.
All right. Okay. This is really important. There are so many certifications out there that are under consideration when applying. Okay. You might be getting a preference if you're MWBE. You might be getting a preference if you're disabled or a vet. All those things are really important. If you self-certify as a veteran-owned business, it's self-certification. Keep that folder, okay? Any of these kind of certification processes, they're gonna help you potentially win bids. They're gonna potentially help you when there's a loan or a grant that's coming out. It distinguishes you amongst your competition. So one, if you can, take one of these certification logos, if you have it, put it on your website, right? It's important to have this information, but you can't do it unless you actually have that certification. So having like the little logo on your website doesn't mean enough. You need the actual certification, okay? And then there's a lot of miscellaneous information that may be asked. And again, this is a checklist that I didn't necessarily think of until all of what we've been going through, okay? Proving your lease. That was important for the Buffalo and Back to Business and even Erie County. They want to know where your business is operating, okay? Some small business owners that operate from their home, if they didn't have an outside location, they weren't eligible. So we want to prove our lease, and we want to prove utility bills. Utility bills can also be used sometimes in lieu to prove your location. Business insurance. Nobody is going to lend to somebody who doesn't have business insurance, okay? Sometimes a vendor list helps. So, you know, I've got a lot of accounts payable, but I also have a lot of accounts receivable, all right? So these are the vendors that I'm working with. Some of them are giving me 90 days. Some of them are giving me 30 days. That's important because, again, that helps with the cash flow and the capability of paying back the loan. Service contracts and purchase orders. I know Andrea just had something like this the other day where somebody had an enormous purchase order but couldn't fund, they didn't have enough inventory or equipment to be able to service the contract. So they were going to take that purchase order along with their other documentation to the bank to prove that they've got the money coming in the door to secure that loan. Any technical licenses, those are really important too, to authorize you to perform in the manner that you are saying that you can perform. You know, if you're a physician's assistant, or if you're a licensed electrician, whatever it is, that technical license is critical. And then, as I said before, the business plan and financial projections. The business plan is going to tell the story of how you're going to, the conditions of the business. That's one of the C's. And the cash flow is going to show the capacity to pay it back. Okay. Nobody should get in business without having one of these. And yeah, it is a snapshot of time and it is a projection. It's part of the whole crystal ball. But it proves that you've thought about everything and you've possibly mitigated risk while you're doing your business planning. And then finally, personal documentation, driver's license. SBA just asked for one of my clients to prove her driver's license. She needed to send her driver's license. It was the first time that's happened, and I've been doing this since March. Passport, green card, resume. Why not have all these things on readily accessible? These are small things to have accessible. Obviously, if you have a passport and a green card, those are really very important. The driver's license, we all kind of have, and a resume. And the resume, again, if we did a great business plan, it would be in there. Sometimes if your business is brand new, they want to make sure, again, that you have the ability, like me saying before, that I couldn't be a plumber because I've never been a plumber before. Doesn't mean I couldn't open a plumbing company. It doesn't mean that. It just means that I've got to prove that I have other capabilities to keep the business alive. So those are other small personal documentations that people may or may not ask, and it's worth keeping. Again, I did do some SBA EIDL applications for some nonprofits. It gets much different. Usually they want a board member or somebody to take responsibility, which is really hard because there's some, help me here with this word, Andrea. There's
the executive director is liable.
Right.
When we
liability.
Right. I did several not-for-profits in the beginning of COVID, and if the director wasn't willing to sign it, give their social security number, no EIDL loan.
Right.
So, and they're not used to that. The way a private sector business owner, they know they got to put themselves on the line all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sue. I was like spacing out. So here's the checklist. Everything that I talked about, those are the categories that I think if you made a folder for your business entity, for your banking, taxes, I like to keep those by year. Your financials, again, keep them by year. You can actually move your taxes and financials together if you wanted. If you have any kind of certification, I would maybe put that in with your miscellaneous business. And then, of course, you want to keep a personal file, okay? You might not want to keep that on your business laptop, but know that those are going to be required sometime. So open up the floor to more questions, if there are any. I'll stop sharing.
Oh, sorry.
Oops.
There's
Anything?
nothing in the chat.
Okay. All right. Well, I do think that, this is important for, I just want to say, this is really important for, loan readiness, but I think this is just business readiness. It's really important. Like I said, when I put this plan together or this PowerPoint together, it was basically how we instruct our clients when they're starting a business. So I just want to, keep in mind that even if you think you're never going to have to go for a loan, these documents are going to be needed one way or another. And you should have them. You should have them organized, and you should have them, at your fingertips at all times. And if you haven't considered your business entity, if you haven't opened up a separate bank account, if you haven't done any of those things, please consider doing so now before you go any further into your business.
Marilyn, we do have a question, and it's, how does the checklist change if the organization is a nonprofit?
Okay, so can I take a look at that checklist again? Okay. Okay. So your business entity, you're not an LLC, but you're 501c3 or 4 or 5 or 7, or right? So you need to have that business entity. Your banking, there's no change there. Your taxes, no change there. Financials, I don't see any difference. I think it's the personal part, okay? I think that's really where we have some issues, okay? Again, like Sue was saying, if the executive director is going to have to hold responsibility for this loan, that's a huge responsibility, okay? It's a lot of faith in this operation and in your other partners in this you know, board of directors, okay? So I don't see any differences in any of this. I think it just needs to be adapted to what your entity is, how you bank, and how you maintain your financials. You might not have monthly financials because you might be a seasonal business, okay? You know, you've got your, I don't know if you have operating costs on when you're off season. But all of this applies. I mean, even if you're just going to have that soup kitchen is critical. All of those things that we talked about all belong in here, okay? And Andrea or Sue, do you see any difference that I'm missing?
No,
No.
totally right on.
Yeah. So the reason why I mean, you know, I'm not a specialist on nonprofit because I don't understand the corporate structure, okay? And I know that there's other parts to it. But in general, you're running your business like a business, no matter if you're nonprofit or for-profit. So all of this is very, very necessary. Again, just the personal is where it gets a little bit off. And of course, it's going to be who you're working with, all right? Because a lot of the for-profits can't get grants. This has been an unusual season for us for for-profits to get grants. It's because of COVID, okay? So it's just kind of the opposite, that we've all had to adapt for-profits when applying for grants. And that's why a lot of this, they weren't ready because, you know, who would have thought that you needed to have your family income ready? But the grants required it. Anything else?
No.
I want to thank you all. I hope that you gathered some nuggets from this.
Marilyn, if you wouldn't mind, I wanted to jump in for a second to mention to everyone listening that one of the specialties of our center at Buffalo State, and we do coach you by remotely now with Zoom or whatever you're comfortable with, we do provide assistance with helping you develop either your business plan or your strategic plan. Our advisors, we can, as a team, we can take you through the various steps required to put together a very effective and useful business plan. So I just wanted to add that. And further, if you have any questions or would like to work with us, we are at Buff State. We are at 878-4030. I think did we put that info yet in the chat? We can do.
I did not put that info in the chat yet. I'm going to do it right now. The other thing that I did put in the chat, and if I can ask everybody, I did put a link to an evaluation. If everybody could please click on that link and fill out the evaluation, it's fairly quickly, that would be very much appreciated.
And do they get the slides if they?
If they fill out the application, thank you, Marilyn, for that point, and you put your email, if you fill out the evaluation, the last question is for your email, I will then send you the slides and the recording.
Whoa, whoa, very good, Ms. Lysak, excellent, good. I don't think there are any more questions in the chat.
There's nothing else in the chat.
Okay, so we're like right on schedule here. This has been beautiful.
Thank you.
I'd first of all like to thank once again Assemblyman Jonathan Rivera. Thank you for hosting this program. We do appreciate that. And I'd like to thank Ms. Andrea Lysak, who is the Associate Director of the Buff State Small Business Development Center. Thank you for keeping us organized today. And a very special thank you to Ms. Marilyn Roach, our business advisor, for doing an outstanding program today. And also Jonathan Ling, thanks for joining us. All of you, you're all dynamite. Profit, not-for-profit, citizens of Buffalo, business owners, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
This has been amazing. You really help us tremendously if you fill out the evaluation. It is our record that you participated today. We get to count you if you fill out the evaluation. And that is important working for the college. Thank you very much. Shall I say ciao to everybody? Enjoy
Ciao.
this gorgeous